Hi. Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Raw. It is Friday evening here in the United States. It is about 8 p.m. on the East Coast, and we are actually 12 noon, high noon in Sydney, Australia, coming live. Nathan Meola.
Hey Jay, how you doing, man?
I am doing well. So you guys don't celebrate Thanksgiving over in the Down Under, do you?
We
It's a
don't have a day for it, no.
So you don't so yesterday was just another business day for you, is that right?
Listen, I'm telling you, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I haven't stopped hearing about Black Friday. I don't know what it is, but it's made its way over here. So there's plenty of stuff going on. You know, our retail stores have got Black Friday going. So I don't know if it can be even more disconnected from the what you're celebrating right now, but I can get $150 off a TV if I wanted to.
Nice. I like that. And the good thing is if you miss it today, you got Monday, which is I think it's Cyber Monday.
Is that
And
right?
yeah, in the United States. But I put all of our apparel on sale on Choose Apparel, 30% off through Cyber Monday. So we'll see how that works for us here. But I want to welcome you to the show. Um, I've been looking forward to our visit. Before we start really getting into who you are and where you've been and how you've done it and who you've done it with, what I'd like to do is just address for a few moments here. The last show that we did, I had a guest on. His name is Bob Smith, and welcome to those of you that are catching the show live that are on with us this evening. Deb. Hi, Debbie. So good to see you. Welcome to the live broadcast. We've got Barbara Taylor, who is moderating. She says, welcome. Nathan, she's moderating for Spirituality Gone Wild. And we've got a few other people popping on with us. Karen Palmer, good to see you. Thanks for joining Real Men, Real Talk this evening. In any event, last Friday evening, I had a gentleman named Bob Smith on the show, and Bob Smith came on to talk about child abuse and the organization called UBACA. And unfortunately, what happened during the show, we got some haters that showed up, and they decided that it was the appropriate time to try to sabotage the show. And they continued their behavior there shortly thereafter, off the show. As a private M, I was getting barraged by about 4 or 5 people. And after about a few hours of receiving this, what I call hate attitude and behavior, and allegations unfounded or non factual because they had nothing to provide to me, I made the decision to pull the show from the feed because, the platform of Spirituality Gone Wild, we are a platform about love and kindness and empathy and compassion. And we don't invite hate onto our platform. There's plenty of hate to go around. There's plenty of people in a lot of pain. And all you got to do is turn on the cable news networks. If you want to watch hate, you could see it 24/7. I know you could see it there in Sydney as well. But I personally have chosen to detach from hate, especially as it relates to news, as it relates to TV, and any type of social media. And so when it showed up on the show that I host, after sleeping on it and doing some prayer and meditation, I had my moment of clarity, which was, this is not the platform. This is not where this is going to happen. And so I pulled the show off, and it's no longer available. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm saying that Bob Smith is guilty as these people charge them. The reality is I don't care if he is who he says he is or if he isn't. What I care is the platform that we have is a platform where we want to come from love and kindness. And unfortunately, Bob was attacked on the show, and my heart went out for him. But we were not able to confirm or not confirm any of the allegations and hearsay. And therefore, I decided that we're not the platform that's going to try to prove him innocent or guilty. It was just what we needed to do. Hopefully, the message that those that watched it heard what they needed to hear about the the organization that he represents, which is a beautiful organization to help children that are have been affected by some type of domestic abuse. And so that's the background on that, and I can put that behind me now. Great lessons and growth for me through this experience. But here we are tonight. It is a new evening. We are all about love, and so, you know, Nathan and I were introduced to one another by my co-host on another show that I do with Debbie on Sundays. And she said, you were somebody I had to talk to. I needed to have you on my show. And so we connected about a week or so ago. And we had just an absolutely amazing hour and 15 minutes or so of just this type of conversation that we're about to enter into. And so, Nathan, without further ado, welcome to Real Men, Real Talk. I am so honored and humbled to have you on the show. You know, one of the takeaways that I came away with after we met, and we just had an instant soul-to-soul connection, was how that never would have happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago for sure. I had only met one or two other people from Australia in my lifetime. But because of social media and the reach of the internet, we were able to just absolutely connect in just an amazing way that would never have been possible before. Yet here we were engaged in a beautiful, intimate, man-to-man conversation, speaking our truths and sharing our life stories together. And when we were finished, I was just so happy, and I was in such gratitude that, you know, we could take something that some people perceive as negative, which is social media, Facebook, the internet, and how it can be misused. And there are those of us that actually turn it into a very positive experience for ourselves, and we then push it out to others. And so here we are.
Yeah, it's incredible what can be done now. And I think one part is the ability to connect from the other side of the world. And for, you know, before I say any more, I want to say thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for being open to connecting, because it's not just the fact that technology has allowed us to connect from the other side of the world, but it's also what is happening is we are more able now to share and have these types of conversations in a more open way. And I think that when you connect with someone the way that we connected and speak in that way from the heart, it really, the conversation that unfolds is because of both people and because of the connection. So we both, the way I describe it is, when you've done work on yourself and understanding yourself, when you have a truly deep conversation with someone, and you learn something more about yourself in the process, it's a beautiful thing. I think that's what we're all searching for. So it's very nice to find someone, even all the way over in Arizona, who has the ability to connect and converse in a way that enables us both to share in that uplifting energy, and it's that energy that enables us to open up and share with our hearts. And that's the stuff that we're lacking. That's the stuff that if I'm not having it, I feel like something's missing. So I think that's what we need to see more of, particularly between men, but not just between men, between everyone.
Yes, yeah, I echo that. Yeah, I've said this before, is that I believe ultimately, as human beings, as human race, we all ultimately want the same thing. We want to love, and we want to be loved. And there's all different forms of achieving that. But ultimately, it's about connecting. It's about interrelational. You and I connecting the way we did, and
Well, we had very similar um, points along our journey that we could connect to and anchor to, um, which is not uncommon, but it's the work that follows, the real work that I feel really brought us together.
I agree. And so, with that, I'm going to ask you to share with the community, as we have gotten a number of people on with us this evening, uh, to really start to share some of your story, and how it was, and what it took to get from there to here, and we'll go from there.
Um, okay. uh, Everyone has been through some kind of pain in their life, and it's all relative. And this was true for me. I grew up in a loving household with two beautiful parents who only wanted the best for me and only wanted to protect me from pain. Um, I normally start the story by saying, when I was 18 years old, I kind of woke up one day and realized that I weighed 250 kilos. 250 kilos for you guys over there we'll times that by 2.2, so it's over 500 pounds. And when I say I woke up and realized, that's kind of what it felt like, because it felt like kind of everything before that was unconscious. And it was kind of in that moment where I realized, if something didn't change, then it was pretty much life or death, do or die. So, I had been living a life where I felt that expressing emotions and feeling emotions were not safe. So I learnt at a quite young age. I used to watch movies when I was young and burst into tears. And I remember thinking to myself, when are you going to stop being such a baby? When are you going to stop being such a girl? Like, you got to grow up. You got to get rid of these emotions. And I remember thinking that and really working hard to stop crying when I was watching movies. And, I just felt like I was so emotional, and it wasn't a good thing. So that's what I did. I went on a kind of quest to push down all those emotions that I had labeled as bad. And one of the ways that I did that was by eating food. So it was a strategy that I had developed to deal with the chaos that was going on inside me, that I was so afraid of feeling, that to reach for food and eat food became a kind of like a button, like a feel-good button. And that's what food really is. It's a button that you can press that delivers a very measurable boost of dopamine that will quell emotional pain. And, that's not uncommon. We find lots of different ways to do that. That was one of the methods that I had used to develop that. I also saw a lot of anger from my father growing up. He was working a lot, and his only drive was to provide for his family. That was it. To make sure that we had a good life. So he worked and he worked and he worked very, very hard, very long hours. And I was brought up by my mother, at home. So I adopted her values and her opinions about my father. And what what often happened was the only time I really got to see him was kind of when he was disciplining me, right? He became like the wait till your father gets home type thing. So that's all I really felt from him. I felt kind of the anger, but what I didn't realize was that there was a whole lot of worry and helplessness that was wrapped up in what was happening to me as I continued to put more and more weight on. Now, of course, I didn't feel any of the love underneath the worry and the fear and the anger. I just felt those emotions. So I learned very early on that the strategy that I chose to adopt to deal with that anger that I saw was to shrink and to become as small as possible, and really to become as pathetic as possible so that I wouldn't get hurt. And it forced me to create really a suit of armor that I put on, physically as well as kind of emotionally. So that suit of armor I wore around to protect not only myself from physical harm by being as big as possible, but also from people seeing who I truly was, because I didn't think much of myself, and I didn't want people to see that. So I put on a performance and I put on a show, and that was kind of the pattern that began early on, that continued to get worse and worse and worse. By the time I was 18 years old and 250 kilos, I really thought that, well, I don't really have a future here if I continue in this way. So together with my parents, we made the decision to have weight loss surgery, and I had lap band surgery in 2005. And I thought this was the best thing ever. It was like a miracle. I mean, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to change anything. I just lost weight. And I was so happy about it. Over the first 6 months, I lost about 50 kilos. But what happened then was that same strategy that I had used to deal with the emotions, now I couldn't use. And what I mean by that is the emotions didn't stop. I still had the chaos that was going on inside, but the strategy, which was to eat and eat and eat, I could no longer do because I had a physical restriction from the surgery. And what I had was a lap band, so a little band placed around my stomach. That meant any food that I ate, I could only eat a certain amount, and I would be full. So I tried to do what I had done before, which was to continue to eat, and I did. And I managed to stretch my stomach back open and continue to eat until I was forcing myself to eat almost as much as I had before the surgery. Weight loss stopped. Weight loss slowed and stopped pretty much for the next 5 years. And during that time, the emotional pain and the suppression of those emotions, they manifested into outward physical pain. I mean, yeah, I got to a point where I had a bulging disc in my lower back and a totally numb left leg. And yeah, I was in a really bad shape emotionally. I was in the worst place that I ever had been emotionally and physically. And I thought that I had hit my rock bottom when I was at my biggest, but it was just warming up. And then this came. So now I'm faced with the prospect that I've just had this weight loss surgery, about the most drastic thing you can possibly do to fix a weight problem, and it hadn't helped, and that I had failed again. And that, yeah.
It manifests and it comes out in other ways, because what I'm going to paraphrase what I'm hearing is that if we think that the problem goes away when we just arrest the food addiction, it pops out in other areas. We transfer our addictive behavior to other types of addictions. A lot of people do that. It's not uncommon.
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't addressed any of the underlying issues. I'd literally, I mean, as literal as you can get, put a band-aid on the symptoms. And I
Hmm.
think that a lot of people who are struggling with their weight or food addictions really believe that it's the weight that's the problem. And it's understandable because it's the obvious problem. It gets in the way. Sometimes you can't tie your shoelaces, or you're out of breath walking up the stairs, or you don't feel you don't feel good about your body. When you're getting into bed with someone that you love, and you look down at your body and you see this body that's fat and overweight and obese, and you say, well, that's the problem. If I solve that problem, everything will get better. Um, the problem is that very rarely,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't solve the problem. You can lose as much weight as you want. If you haven't looked at the root cause, then nothing will change.
So I'm gonna interject right there, Nathan, just to put this into perspective from my side of it. Whether it's being 550 pounds as you were by age 18, or you've got a drinking problem that is out of control and you are now an alcoholic, or you have a drug addiction, or you have a sex addiction, or you have a gambling addiction, or you have a shopping addiction. If when we go to these 12-step programs and we think that the solution is just to stop doing the behavior and that we're going to be okay,
Mhm.
it doesn't, we don't end up with happy endings most of the time because we can remain sober, but it doesn't mean that we have relieved ourselves of the internal pain. And until we go deep in within, as you're describing, and be willing to do the work to heal our mind, our body, and soul, we are just holding on, white knuckling, whatever our addiction is, and it's
And
just a slippery slope.
trying to use willpower and discipline, and this idea that I shouldn't be doing this. I need to stop. I assume that's what you mean by white knuckling.
Yes, exactly.
I often find people who go on diets to approach the diet like they've been put into prison, right, to serve their sentence or serve their kind of penance. So to go into prison and be shackled and be fed your 3 meals a day and grit your teeth and serve your time to to view this as a prison sentence that you need to serve, you are setting yourself up for an experience of absolute pain and misery through the entire process. And I guarantee anyone watching, if you're looking to lose weight, every kilo or pound that you lose through deprivation, restriction, starvation, misery, pain, or gritted teeth, or as a punishment to yourself, unless the core issue is resolved, I can almost guarantee that weight's going to come back at some point in some way, or it will manifest in another way that's even more painful.
So here you are. You're 5 years into it. You're about 23 years of age now, and your life is now back out of control. And
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So 24, 25 years old now. 2010. I had just come back from an overseas trip, and I had just come back from New York, actually. And while in New York, I was drinking a lot and partying a lot and doing all of that kind of stuff. And went down for breakfast one morning and sat down. And as I was eating, I felt a numbness creeping up from my left toe. And it just started creeping up, and I was trying to shake my foot out. By the time I stood up after that meal, my leg was numb all the way up to my left hip, and I could barely walk. And that numbness didn't go. It stayed with me. So I changed all my flights and came back to Sydney. I went back to work, but eventually got fired from that job because I was so angry that I couldn't speak to customers. I was so snappy because I was dealing with this chronic pain. So from there, I kind of excluded and isolated myself. I locked myself away in my bedroom in my parents' house, and I was starting to take really strong painkillers. I was taking painkillers. I was smoking a lot of weed. I was watching a lot of horror movies and playing video games. And really the only time I left my room was to go to the drive-thru at KFC or McDonald's, or to go to the doctors, from doctor to doctor to doctor, to see who would prescribe me the strongest painkillers. I avoided my parents pretty much at all costs. So I didn't see them. I didn't see my little sister, my baby sister, who was in the house, and I didn't see any friends. And if I were to look at my future at that point, there was nothing but darkness. I mean, I remember the moment where I kind of just decided that I would eat myself to death. And that decision had stayed with me even after I had surgery. The problem was I just couldn't eat enough. So that's all I did, if you know what I mean.
Oh, believe me, I know exactly what you mean.
So it was kind of just, I felt at that point like I was walking through life backwards. Like I often say, to walk through life backwards with your past spread out in front of you, all of your failures and all of the things that all of the darkness and all the things you've experienced and all the trauma and all the stuff that you've gotten in the past, while the future is happening kind of behind you as you walk. You don't know if you're walking towards a cliff, right? And the only thing you're going to get is more of the past, because the past just becomes the future as you step into it in that way. So really, it was a really, really dark place for me at that moment. And for me in that moment, with that incredible amount of pain, I found myself on the floor of the neurosurgeon's office. And I was there because of the bulging disc in my lower back. And I was lying on the floor because I couldn't sit in a seat. And I was sweating and red with the pain that I was in. And I remember him saying to me that what we're going to do is fuse your spine, do a spinal fusion. And it's going to take 6 months to learn to walk again. There's a 50% chance that it's going to do absolutely nothing. There's another bloody 30% chance that you will be in even more pain, and 20% chance you won't kind of ever walk again. It was really grim. And at that point I was like, yeah, let's do it. Go ahead, book me in. When can you do it?
Wow.
For me, it was just another thing that I felt was going to fix me.
Even though those odds were really bad odds.
It was better than what I was living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least there was something. At least there was something different. So I had gone into the first surgery hoping that it would fix me. I had done every diet hoping that it would fix me. Every pill that I popped, I hoped would fix me. But I was placing it all on the external.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, there's only one problem, Nathan. You're 15 kilos heavier than my maximum weight limit for what I'll perform surgery on. So unless you lose 15 kilos, or until you lose 15 kilos, I can't operate.
That's another 35 pounds. That's roughly 35 pounds.
Right. And I tell you, I got so angry. I got so angry at this man. How dare you? I can't even walk. How do you expect me to lose weight? I'm here so you can fix me, so that I can walk, so that I can lose weight, so I can improve my life. And you're telling me that you won't perform surgery on me because I'm too fat. I got really, really angry. And I lost myself in that kind of rage and that kind of real self-pity, which was another addiction of mine, this self-pity and victim mentality that I had of blaming the external world or blaming myself, neither of which were beneficial. And I got wrapped up in that emotion until I looked up at my mum, who was sitting with me, who had brought me to the neurosurgeon's office, and she was just sobbing. I mean, her head was in her hands, and I could see the tears streaming down her face, and she was like sobbing. And everything just stopped. And I remember thinking for the first time, the pain that I was causing in my family, in my mother. And then I started to think, my parents, their relationship, they argue all the time, and the arguments that it's from worry and fear about me. And I think about my sister. She couldn't look at me without bursting into tears because of the pain she saw that I was in. The way that I would respond to people, snapping and aggressive and angry, the view that I had of the world, and the if I saw people smiling, I would feel hatred. I remember going to Disneyland with the family once and just feeling sick seeing everyone so happy when I was in so much pain.
Let me ask you this, Nathan, if you don't mind. If you could put a percentage on that behavior, um, how much of that was due to emotional versus physical pain?
That's a good question.
Your phone's volume's down.
I actually haven't thought of that before in that way, to break it up between physical and emotional. And I guess my answer is that quite a bit of it was physical pain, but that the physical pain was so intricately linked with the emotional pain that one triggered the other, so they were intertwined. They were inseparable. And I feel that emotional pain that is unprocessed and unreleased and suppressed in the body will manifest into physical pain, because emotional pain is physical pain. When you go through emotions and emotional pain, it has physiological responses in the body, whether it's your heart rate increasing, your blood pressure going up, clenching of the teeth and the jaw, headaches, gut health, changes in your gut. I mean, we talk about emotions as starting in the gut, but also muscular pain, back pain, hips, tightness, that rising anger, ball of anxiety, that barbed wire in your chest, in your heart. I mean, if that goes unprocessed and unreleased for long enough and suppressed, the work that you do to have to suppress that is physical pain. So it's all wrapped up in a big spiky ball for me.
Yeah, I love what you just shared. Your answer is spot on, because we refer to it as, when we're living in dis-ease, eventually it becomes disease. And I experienced that. I very much like you, suppressed my emotions to the point eventually where I was just so numbed out, because I either didn't feel safe to express how I was feeling, and or B, the combination of that, and I was provided with pharmaceuticals for 21 years to numb my emotions for anxiety. And by the time I woke up, I had no emotions left to share, acknowledge, other than anger, hatred, and a lot of resentment.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Anger's, I had suppressed, and I had built up that wall and that armor so strong that there weren't many emotions that could penetrate. You see, once I'd blocked off anger because I'd seen the anger in my father, and I had decided that I wanted to be nothing like him, and I never wanted to make people feel that way. So I decided just to never be angry. So I did all the work required to never be angry, which was to push it inside. That doesn't mean that I didn't feel anger. All that meant was that I had to work hard to keep it inside. And by the time you've suppressed anger, you really have suppressed a lot more than just anger. And I realized that, like you said, it was just the blankness. There was no joy. There was no excitement. There was nothing left. But I feel anger is that emotion that's strong enough to penetrate the armor. So it's often the only emotion left to feel, even though all those other emotions of fear and hurt and doubt and guilt and shame and sadness are all wrapped up underneath and inside the anger. Yet it only comes out as anger. That's why I say I was angry with the world. But there was so much wrapped up inside the anger. That was just the one that was powerful enough for me to feel at that time. But I wanted to finish off that answer, that question, because a lot of people don't understand the connection between physical pain and emotional pain, and might just think that they are in pain, in physical pain, for some strange stroke of luck, that some hand that they've been dealt from up above or from wherever, that they are the victim of something that has happened to them to cause the physical pain, not connecting the fact that every time they feel the twinge in their back, or the bubbling in their guts, or the migraine, that what that's actually doing is a triggering of the emotion. So they might go to a doctor then and say, oh, hey, doctor, I'm having migraines, I'm having headaches, I've got back pain. And the response they get from the doctor is really the only response that a doctor can give, which is, okay, with that collection of symptoms that you have, the label we have for that is A, B, C, D, whatever it is. The collection for that collection, the label for that collection of symptoms, not being able to sleep, dizziness, blah, blah, that's vertigo. So that's what you've got. People with vertigo take this thing, go and take that, right? Well, I'm sorry, but what happens when a person goes home and they take the pills, but the vertigo comes again so strong that this time they have to get up and vomit from the dizziness. And they go back to the doctor and say, doctor, I vomited this time, I had an attack. He says, oh, that's not vertigo, that's kind of Meniere's disease now. So it's like progressively stepping up in the ante each time. And
that's how we end up with multiple autoimmune disorders. Or heart disease, diabetes, the list goes on. Look, by the time I got released from Cedars-Sinai 38 months ago, I think I was provided with 9 different diagnoses, and each one had a prognosis attached to it like a ball and chain.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here, Nathan? Because this is, we're about 45 minutes into this conversation, and
okay,
we can go over. I've got the time, but
well. Look, I think that there's a very valuable. Let me just explain a little bit further, because we have to talk about what happened once I made the decision to change physically, and I went through that process. So that was the decision that I made in that doctor's office, in that neurosurgeon's office, that I have to do something about this, that there were no more excuses and there was no one left to blame, that I had to take responsibility. So what came from that was an incredible amount of work and discipline, and like all those things we talked about, willpower, and a real creation of a new vision for my life. And that's really what I did. Funnily enough, and this is kind of what I teach as well, is you cannot create your reality of your life unless you first envision it. So unless you first feel it so strongly now that you have something that will pull you towards that. And that's really what I did. What I did was I was writing short stories and short films, scripts for short films. And I decided at that moment to write a short film about a man or a boy who was lost and depressed and angry with the world, who was desperately overweight, who had no future or no vision for his future, and hated his job and was in incredible amount of pain, all of that stuff, who stumbles across a magic pill. And when he takes the pill, he wakes up the next morning and he's lost all the weight and his life is completely transformed. And in that script that I wrote, I explored what it would be like to experience that emotionally and mentally. What would the changes go through? And I spent weeks and weeks and weeks writing this script and diving into it, and I really got carried away with it. And really what this was creating a vision, writing a story, literally creating my life. And I mean, I got so carried away, Jay, that I was planning my interview with Oprah after I'd won an Oscar for the film. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, I wrote the film as if it was happening. And I didn't just stop there. I bought a camera. Together with some friends, we bought a camera. And the idea was to film the first half of that film while I was overweight and in pain and all of those things. And then to lose the weight over the next 6 months to a year, and then come back and film the rest of it and put it all together. I was like, this is going to be the most amazing film you've ever seen. Like, you know, there's no actor in the world who's done that type of transformation for a role. This is kind of what created the drive and the motivation and the vision that pulled me forward. And I didn't realize until later that what I had actually done was to create a new identity for myself. And I felt it in the moment, which meant that everything that I did from that moment forward, all of the hours of exercise, you know, I quit my job, I got a job at a health food store, all of those things over the next kind of 3 or 4 years was all part and parcel of creating that vision that I had created. And I went on that journey. And I lost kind of 80 kilos through that. But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that when you're in that dark place and you're feeling the weight of that pain, and like I said, walking through life backwards, the main driver for me was to push away from that pain. So it was like a swimmer pushing off a wall, you know, doing backstroke, pushed off the wall. And the problem with that is you don't actually know the direction you're pushing. So I pushed into this area of physical. So I transformed my life physically. So I did everything I needed to do physically. But of course, there was so much more going on. I still hadn't addressed any of the emotional stuff. I still hadn't addressed any of the mental stuff or the mindset stuff. I was just completely and totally distracted and obsessed with physical. And of course, along with that came lots of praise and lots of self-gratifying Facebook posts. You know what I mean? Before and after photos, external validation. I had literally just switched from the mask and the armor that I had worn, which was to be as big as possible, now to this new identity of, look how great I am. at the things that I'm doing to change my life and lose weight. And my goal was really to have the best before and after photo that anyone had ever seen. And this was the driving force. Can you see how wrapped up I was in external validation at that point, that really I had just shifted my addictions?
Yeah, and the external piece is where ego and pride come in, right?
Yeah.
And when we're there, we're not living is in humility. So that's what I'm hearing is you were driven again the external through the ego and pride of removing the armor and now putting yourself out there. But it was, I mean, it was a great motivator. But I'm excited to hear the back end of that. So what did it look like when you had the next awakening?
And that's right, isn't it? There was always a next awakening. There's a when you make a decision to change your life, when I made a decision to change my life, it doesn't actually change anything in reality. I mean, the world is still standing, everything's still the same, yet you're different. And this is kind of the experience that I had of I had met Moret. Moret's my fiance. I had met Moret when I was at university, and we became great friends. I still remember the moment she walked in to the room. You have to remember, I'm a really, really big guy, and I'm the class clown. So I'm making jokes and talking, and I'm loud, and I'm out there, and I'm wearing a big baseball jersey. It's got Big Daddy on the front, and I'm wearing like a beret. Like I'd created my whole identity around being this big guy. And Moret walked in, and this was the most beautiful, captivating, sexy girl I'd ever seen in my life walk in this room. I still remember what she was wearing at university when I was 20 years old. And, I kind of invited her to sit next to me, and we became friends. We became great friends, and we spoke a lot, and we laughed a lot, and we spent the kind of next year getting to know each other. And I did what I always do, which is, this girl is way out of my league. Way out of my league. So I resigned to the fact and slip into just the friend. I had been doing it all my life. My protection for not being hurt. So I never allowed myself to feel the possibility of being in a relationship, any relationship, let alone relationship with this girl. So our lives continue, and we lose contact, and we do our own thing and live our own lives. And during that time, I went through this physical transformation. And, I did my thing. I met girls. I had relationships, a couple of relationships. And it was about 6 years later, in 2014, that we both got out of long-term relationships. And after I had lost all this weight, I was a personal trainer. I was training 7 days a week, twice a day. I had the muscles. My testosterone was flowing. I'd lost all this weight. I was getting the external validation. I felt like a king. I was on top of the world. And we met again. And things were just different. And I can't describe the feeling that I felt at that time, coming back and meeting her again. And the sparks flew, and we kind of pursued a relationship together. And I remember the feeling, oh my God, like I did it. I jumped from the friend zone. Like I made it. And I was so happy with myself. And now I looked at my life, right? Now I've totally transformed my physical. I've got all these muscles, and I'm strong, and I'm fit. And now I've got literally the girl of my dreams. What more could I want? This is it. But it wasn't enough. And I was still seeking more. And that seeking came out for me in flirting with other girls and looking at other girls and doing things that were really disrespectful to Marette, not understanding what or why I was doing it. And eventually it led me to cheating on her. And I remember sitting afterwards and being hit with what I can only describe as a freight train of guilt. And I remember it so vividly because it was the first time that I had felt anything in a very, very long time. And it knocked me. It really, really knocked me. And I didn't know that feeling was there to be felt. I had been numb for so long that when it hit me, I did not know how to deal with it. I didn't know what to do with it. It was so overwhelming, and I felt things that I'd never felt before. And this is what I'm talking about when I say that armor becomes so strong that it takes something like the freight train or the disaster or the thing that's strong enough to penetrate that armor. And that's what happened. And it forced me to make a decision. And the decision that I made was to continue doing what I'd always done, which was to push it down, to push that guilt down and do whatever I needed to do to forget about it so that I could go on and live my life. And I told myself, that's it. I'm going to live on, and I'll take this to my grave and no one will ever know about it and I'll be fine. Well, mate, I wasn't fine. That thing that I had pushed down so deeply, I had to work so hard to cover up, and it just kept bubbling up and bubbling up and bubbling up. And I held on to it for a year and a half as I watched my career and my relationship just start to spiral out of control, spiral downwards as I tried to sweep everything under the rug. And I felt totally alone. And I just couldn't figure out what to do. And that was then for me kind of, again, we talk about manifesting that emotion in other places. My health deteriorated. Like I said, my career deteriorated. I was making decisions that were unconsciously sabotaging everything that I had done up until that point, including the relationship, and it was not headed in a good direction. So I decided that I had more to look at, and that's what started me on the journey of looking inside, looking at emotionally what was going on inside. So, I found a mentor, and I started looking at my values, and I started reading about masculinity and what it means to be a man and who I wanted to be. I went to Tony Robbins' seminar and was just shook with, I'm making these decisions on an unconscious level. Why am I making them? And I went on an absolute quest to figure out why. I'm still totally convinced that I didn't have to tell her. But as I started to do more of this work and more stuff started to come up, I started to meditate and I started to ask questions of myself. And this thing started to bubble up and bubble up and bubble up. And I would argue with it and put it away. This guilt, I would just put it away.
Yeah, we call it, at least the city I'm from, it's called compartmentalizing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's compartmentalizing as if just the metaphor is if you just imagine a Costco shelf with boxes lined up, from all 4 levels or 5 levels, however tall that that shelf is, and each box has got a lid. And inside of each box is another deceit, another lie, another untruth, another behavior that you or I have done that's just riddled with pain for somebody else if they find out about it, if we disclose
Right.
it. But meanwhile, we think that we're okay as long as we're keeping a lid on it, right? We're holding it in. But what's happening is it's causing internal havoc and damage to our own being.
Yeah.
And it's
And
affecting, it's oozing out and it's permeating out of the pores of our skin, and it's affecting and infecting our relationships on the outside.
yeah. And it's great that you mentioned that, because it wasn't just the cheating. It wasn't just that decision. That was one decision. And I knew it was something that I didn't want to do, and I knew it was something that I would never do again. But it enabled me to face the web of lies that I had been telling all my life. So that's really what it ended up being about, was the fact that it wasn't just this one thing that I was hiding. It was the fact that ever since the first moment when we met, Maret and I had been lying. I had been lying at a fundamental level, because the person that I had presented to the outside world was so far removed from who I was on the inside that that I didn't even know who I was anymore. Was I this outside? I felt like at that moment when I was facing all of this, it wasn't just that I was holding this one thing; it was that everything was a lie, and I realized that I had an addiction to lying, that I was a compulsive liar, and that was something that was truly terrifying to confront. And I remember the moment when I made the decision that I had to tell Maret that I had cheated on her. I was meditating and I was going for a walk, and that thing bubbled up, like you say, the compartmentalized boxes. The lid comes up and everything pops out, and the fight is, how do we put it back in the box and close the lid and get on with life? Well, I had been doing that for a year and a half, but it had been harder and harder to do. I mean, things were just spilling out everywhere, and I was struggling to stuff it back in the box. Well, this time when it came out, I looked at the mess and I said, I don't know if I can put all this back in. And I did my best, and I fought with it and argued with it. I remember it was like a 45-minute meditation session of trying to put this thing back and explain it and rationalize it. And it just clicked. I couldn't do it, and I had to tell her. And I broke down into tears, and I was absolutely terrified of what was to come, because I realized that I would have to do the thing that I was most afraid of in this world, in my life, which was to open myself up. The consequences being that someone may choose to not love me, that I wouldn't be loved, and I knew that I had to. I knew that I had to face that. I knew that that was something that wasn't just for the sake of this relationship or to save this relationship, but it was for me in my life, and to become the man that I needed to be, to align, that I had to do that. And then I had to be willing to face the consequences, whatever they may be. And I kind of, at that point, was like, okay, strap in. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but let's do this. And I have to say that what gave me the strength to do that was that I had a vision. The vision, I don't know if I created the vision or if it just came to me, but the vision that I saw was the vision for our relationship. the vision for our relationship, and the trust that I would be able to handle whatever was to come, and the trust that Moret would be able to handle it as well. And that together, to get through this and the other side, the vision of that relationship filled me with so much strength and so much joy. And I saw it clear as day. That vision for the relationship, I had it, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I knew that this was what I wanted. I knew this is where it was going to be. And I knew that I would do whatever it took to get there. And as soon as I knew that, as soon as I felt that, then it meant that everything that was about to happen was all included in that journey, and that it was time to just buckle up and make the changes and do the stuff, even though it was terrifying. That's what gave me the strength to confront that, because I held the vision for the relationship through the entire time.
I'm gonna just take a second here to give you a moment to breathe. And while you're doing that, Nathan, I just want to acknowledge you. Um, hmm. It takes, I'm reading some of the comments here, and I do want to just take a second here to acknowledge those that are watching live. The comments are such as, "That was so very brave, very proud of you to speak your truth." Just a couple of comments there, and I want to just acknowledge to you that this is so much more than just being brave. This is just the most beautiful expression of self that you can do. This is about true courage. The courage to change, the courage to face your demons, to face, let's say, the devil within, and know that not only did you face it then, but I'm speaking about the fact that you are vulnerable and authentic and come from a space of honesty and integrity today to show up, let's say, for this show. Because I don't know too many men that are willing to step in and step on into a studio and share the story the way you have so far this evening. And I just want to honor you for this. And I want to let you know that I have the tremendous respect for you as a human being, as a man specifically, that you have the courage to speak your truth. Because I think what you have learned, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when we speak our truth, we no longer live in bondage. That internal bondage that kept us in disease through the compartmentalizing of every aspect of our life that was riddled with untruths. And the freedom that we get when you show up on a show like this and we have this conversation is the greatest gift that we get to give to ourselves. That's what blows me away about the conversation that we're having right now. This is the same conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. And it's just a beautiful thing for you and I to be able to have this conversation and know that no matter what, we're okay with sharing our authentic self, our vulnerability. And if it means that there are people in our world that don't like us, that don't love us, that don't respect us for sharing our truth, at least for me, I'm okay with that today. There's a saying, it's none of my business what you think of me. And what that means for me is that the only thing that matters, most importantly, is what I think of me. I have to like me first. And I think part of the transformation, part of the evolving into the man that you are today is learning how to like yourself. That leads to loving yourself. And then you're able to have love for other people coming from a healthy space. So I just wanted to put that out there. I just wanted to acknowledge you. and just thank you for being a real man that's willing to come on and be raw and authentic. And I love you for that. I truly do. And thank
Thank
you.
you, brother. It's not an easy thing to be confronted with the web of lies that you've created in your life, and to be confronted with the realization that all has to change, and that you have to unpick all of that and sort it out and disentangle yourself from that. It was the scariest moment of my life. I didn't feel brave at all at the moment. I felt terrified, and I do believe that I realized in the moment that there was more to it than just coming clean about this thing. That what it actually was a symbol that I had made a decision to tear down the statue that I had built of Nathan, that I had expected people to worship in my life. And if we want to call that the ego, then it was facing the death of that ego.
Yeah, let's call it the false self is another way. That just comes to mind right now. Because certainly that's not who you are at the core.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And to face that, and to realize that it was a symbol, to telling Moret and admitting that was a symbol for me of the beginning of the end of that self. So I knew that there was more to come. Is the thing, I knew that it wasn't just this one thing. That it would be a process of facing that over and over again from the people that I loved, the people that were close to me, and then really making a decision from that moment that I would tell the truth of the truth as I saw it, and nothing but the truth, when I really hadn't been doing that all my life. I realized, and what I feel now is that old saying that the truth will set you free. Really, I kind of really feel that strongly, and that's how I live my life now. And I think that's what makes me the person that I am today. It makes me who I am with my clients. It gives me the ability to be a role model and a leader as a man for men, because I lacked that in my life. And I think in a more general sense, men are lacking that. And we've lost our way. And we need people like you, Jay, and like myself, to stand up and accept the responsibility of a role model, which is not an easy thing to accept, particularly when you have a lot to turn around and a lot of straightening out to do. But to be a role model for men, to guide them and show them what it means to actually be a man, not that idea of what we've been sold of what it means to be a man, that we've seen in movies and on TV and in media, and what we've been led to believe. We must untangle all of that and step into a new consciousness as men, and understand ourselves and understand what it means to be and embrace the masculine core as it relates to the feminine core, and to really embrace and love and honor women and celebrate women and treat them with the respect that they deserve as the carriers of life. You know what I mean?
Oh my. Amen. I mean, that's just a powerful statement right there. And we could go off for an hour just on that topic alone. But what I do want to do is I want to acknowledge someone that's in our studio with us tonight on the show with us, Cortez says, I see two men that are lighthouses for me and others. And he says, happy tears again, Jay. I'm going to tell you something about this man, Cortez. Cortez is a man that is like you and I today. I don't know that he was always that way. I don't think he was, but he is today, and he's on his own healing journey. And he and I have connected offline the way you and I did, and we laughed and we talked and we cried together on our own video chat. And you know, that's what I get to experience in my life today, is connecting with and meeting other men and women that are ready to rip off the shield, the external facade that is riddled with false belief systems and behaviors that are damaging, most importantly, to themselves and in others as part of the fallout, the collateral damage. And when I meet men like you, and I meet men like Cortez and others that step forward and come into my life today, it just continues to bless me, because what it does is it gives me courage. It gives me affirmation, confirmation and affirmation that what you were doing and the work that I'm doing on a daily basis, you can't put a price tag on it, because we're just giving men the permission to just be, just be by telling our truth, even when our truth is painful to ourselves and to others, because through that pain is how we grow. And when we grow and we're willing to push it out and share it, as you are doing in Sydney, Australia, in the work you're doing today, Nathan, is we're paying it forward, and then one by one, if we're able to influence other people to be willing to step into themselves and allow them to heal their own minds, body, and soul, that's the greatest gift that we can give back to society. It's like what I call my living amends today, I'm going to spend the rest of my life, whatever time I have left, doing just that, because I caused a lot of damage to a lot of people, not just to myself, as I was misbehaving through 54 years of my life. Today we get to give it away. And I thank you for that.
And I thank you too. Yeah.
So we're at a crossroads, Nathan. Your story is, you're not done. We have a choice, most of my life, I didn't realize I had too many choices. I just wanted solutions and quick fixes. But today I know that I have a choice, as do you. We could continue talking and just let the show go until we feel like we've completed what we needed to share tonight, or we could schedule to come back on another show and continue, pick up where we left off. I'm good either way. I'm gonna invite you to really let me know what you're feeling in this moment and what you'd like to do, and I will honor that.
I think you had a really great idea, which was, why don't we come back and why don't I bring Meret on, and why don't we talk about this together, because I only shared my story. There's another half of that that's incredible and profound, and that half comes from her, and the work that we do now, we do together, and we help couples heal their wounds, and we help men to understand the interaction and flow between the masculine and feminine energy, and we help women to step into and their vulnerability and as a feminine essence, and we do that together. So if it's okay with you, I would love to come back with Meret and share more of that at another time that we choose.
Yes, I love that. I love that idea, and I welcome it, and we will do that. We will schedule a show. It doesn't have to be on Friday night. It doesn't have to be on a Saturday. It just has to be. And we can talk offline and schedule that out in the very near term. I would like to invite you though, to put a bow on your story for the night, on what you shared, to put some closure on. You got us to this point in your story when
Sure.
you really hit the wall,
Sure.
the wall of you were done, and you knew that you were ready to face whatever consequences there were, if it meant that you were going to even lose Moret.
Yes.
You were okay with that, because in that moment you knew that even if this relationship was done and she was not going to be willing to do the work, to do the healing that she would need to do, and you to do the healing you needed to do to come back together as a couple.
Yeah.
You knew that if you didn't change, that your behavior was just going to continue with someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly right. It was a decision that if I don't do this now, the pattern is just going to continue, and running away from this is the easy option. But it's not the solution. The solution is to sit with it together and go through the turmoil and the pain, and the next 6 months, the next 12 months after that. I can't say that it was pleasant. There were pleasant moments and happy moments, but the work that we had to do to get to the place we're at now really took everything that we had, and there's so much more to the story, to what we had to do, but that really is a story together. For me, what I realized as I stood up in front of 2,000 people at a Tony Robbins event and shared that, because that's what I had to do. Sorry, that's not what I had to do. That's what I did. That was the decision that I would do whatever it took to heal and to show my level of commitment to this relationship and to Moret. So I stood up in front of 2,000 people and I shared that. And there was a moment where I had the realization that I had been living life like the star of a show, and everyone around me was just the supporting act. And I was stepping on people because I believed that their only role was to lift me up. And I didn't know I was doing this, but I realized it in that moment. And I looked at Moret, I looked over at her, and I saw the pain in her eyes. And it was just like when I saw the pain in the eyes of my mother at that moment, when I realized that the things that I had been doing, the decisions that I had been making, had been only with me in mind. That I had literally been playing the role of the center of the universe. And I kind of almost saw myself stepping on Moret as the pedestal, that she was just there to support me in this kind of life. And that realization just shook me, because what I realized then was that I'm not the star of this show, that she's the star of this show for me, and that what I want is to see her shine, and I want to be the support, the rock that she can stand on so that she can shine. And when I made that shift or that switch, I saw everything differently. And I made a decision right there and then that I was going to do absolutely everything in my power as a human, as a man, to fill her up and provide her with whatever she needed, so that she could shine. And I think men are afraid to do that in a relationship because they're afraid to lose themselves. But it was in making that decision that I actually discovered myself, and I discovered what it means to be a man. At the bottom, at the base of it all, is to provide and to protect. And I had not been doing that. So in that moment, the two of us really, after knowing each other for 12 years, got to see each other for the very first time and meet each other for the very first time. And to heal the relationship, what we had to do in that moment was choose to start a new relationship. Was choose to start a new relationship based on new values, and to literally drop everything that had come before. And this was not going to work if it was a relationship where we were together, but I was feeling guilty and I was feeling ashamed, and she was feeling resentment and wanted to punish me or wanted me to feel pain for the things that I had done. That was not the relationship that I was signing up for again. And that was not the relationship that she wanted to sign up for. So it was a new relationship. And it's just like any relationship that ends. There are lessons to be learned, and you cannot learn the lessons from the end of that relationship if you're wrapped up in the pain of the loss. So in any relationship, if you do not move past the pain, then you will carry the pattern into the next one, and you will get the same again, just different color hair.
Yeah, and that's how we end up in multiple marriages. A lot of people, because it's more about anger, resentment, blame, and shame, and not taking accountability for our part in the demise of the relationship. It's only when we're willing to do just that, own our part, own 100% of my behaviors, and allow my partner to own 100% of theirs or hers. Only then do we have the potential opportunity for healing to take place. It doesn't always happen that way, Nathan. And when we get together, the next time we get together, I would like to share some of my side, my story, because my story ended very differently than yours, very differently. And it is my truth that I do need to be able to share, and I have shared it to a large extent. But you're a very fortunate man. You are a blessed man that you have a partner, Marat, your fiance, who is willing to do some significant work to navigate through this very, very, very painful period.
And and I think that's important, because we can sit here and talk to me about how brave I was and blah blah blah, and how, but the fact of the matter is, what she has done is absolutely incredible, and she is the most unbelievable, powerful, inspiring, heart-centered woman. What she was able to do through the entire period, I mean, she never said a single word out of anger to hurt me. Not a single word. She, even through the deepest, darkest pain, she was there as support, and we were there to support each other. I know that sounds incredible, but that's the truth. And when we made a decision in that moment, we made a decision to commit to each other, and a decision to be with each other, not because we had to be, because the truth was it was easier to be apart at that moment. We made a decision as we stared at the rubble of the relationship, and realized if I had a statue and she had a statue, then the relationship was false as well. So when we were staring at the rubble, there was nothing left but just us naked. And then we made the choice and the decision to be together. And I wonder how many relationships are formed and continue and just hit these milestones of moving in together, getting a dog, having children, getting engaged, getting married, buying a house, all these little milestones that distract from the reality, which is that these two people never actually chose each other. They've just been swept up on the wave of what we call love, which is actually just this physiological response to the word we call love, which I thought was the thing that you feel when you watch a porno kind of thing, that lust feeling, that rising energy, or the dependency. I think you called it.
Yeah.
To get carried away, but never actually make the conscious choice, free from emotion, to be together. And that's what we did. And we learned the lessons from our previous relationship, and we brought it into a new relationship. We just so happened to continue a new relationship with ourselves rather than start a new relationship with someone else. And I can't tell you how many times we've had a new relationship. I mean, I feel like we have a new relationship every day. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And I think that's important, to re-choose each other, to start new relationships, to break up, to come back together, to have multiple marriages within the same marriage. Because why wouldn't you want to carry the lessons on and build from what you've already created with the same person? But of course, both people have to be willing.
What you just shared is just brilliant. I really like that a lot, and I think what resonated with me, two things. One is that when I make the conscious decision in today, because yesterday is gone and tomorrow we don't know if it comes. In the moment today, to be very, very present in my relationship.
Yeah.
And that means acknowledging, that means respecting, that means honoring my partner in the moment, and speaking those words, not just thinking them, but expressing them in my most, let's call it the yin and the yang balance of my masculinity and feminine side. And I love that I'm able to do that today. I wasn't able to do that in my 30-year marriage. On most days, I was not present, and I was not able to be present and really participate in the today moment. So I love that. And the second thing is when you said, we might as well grow together and start over each day if we need to. But that, again, it takes willingness, and it takes, I think, two people that are willing to do the work. And a lot of relationships, it seems like there's always one that says, I'm good, you got the problem.
Yeah.
And as long as I've coached a lot of those people, I've coached the people that are on the receiving side of that statement. I'm not tending to coach the people that are making that statement because they're so good, they don't need the help. That stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you got two people that are living together and they're miserable and they're alone in the same home. And eventually, they either stick together and they're miserable and they just write off this lifetime, or one of them gets sick and tired of feeling sick and tired and they exit out stage left.
Yeah. We've got here. Yeah. We've got here on the wall back here is the framework that we help couples with, and at the bottom of that pyramid, I don't know if you can see it, is commitment. So we get couples that come to us and want help for their relationship. The first thing you've got to find out is do both people want to continue in this relationship, and we don't move on until we've established that. So sometimes it can be a very, very short coaching session, because when that truth comes out, yeah, sometimes a person's just not willing, but they've just never been able to express it. But once you find that out, I mean, what's left? If a person really doesn't want to be there, then the person really doesn't want to be there, and there's no coaching on the planet that can help.
Yeah. Nathan, I'm going to ask you to maybe just give a wrap up here. And then we can, if you can stay in the studio just for a minute after we go off air, so we could just do a quick wrap up together. But parting thoughts for this evening and our show. My parting thoughts are, I just want to again thank you for showing up and being real and being raw and being your true, authentic self and vulnerable. I'm humbled by your presence this evening, and I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Jay. It's been great. I think what you're doing is an amazing thing, and I think it's very needed. And I think there are a lot more of us out there than we realize. We just got to start bringing them together. But really, as always, what comes up for me as I share these stories is that we kind of have so much going on, and we have so much wrapped up from the past, beliefs and perspectives and rules and cultural and family, and the filter that we see the world through is created through all of that stuff. And all that stuff was formed such a long time ago that we essentially are operating based on strategies and patterns that were developed when we were children to protect ourselves. So it doesn't matter what we're talking about. If we're not willing to let go of that stuff and step into it and create a new identity, then we may as well not be talking about relationships here, because you've got to focus on yourself first. So if you're in a relationship and you want to work on that relationship, the first thing you got to do is work on yourself. The first thing you got to do is work on yourself, and both people in that relationship have to do their own work to really understand themselves and create that identity for themselves. So do the work. It's worth it. It may be painful at times, but the path leads to light and love and freedom.
Yes, amen. Amen. So we're going to wrap up. Nathan, thank you for being here with me this evening.
Thank you.
We'll schedule another time. I want to thank those that caught us live and participated in the show tonight. Thank you so much. It means so much to me that we have people that are interested to hear what we have to say and show up for us and show up for themselves. And so I want to acknowledge those that are in the studio and on the show with us tonight. If you missed it, it's okay. It doesn't matter when we show up. It doesn't matter if we show up on time or we show up late. It just matters that we show up. And so this will be on replay. And next show I've got is on Sunday with Debbie. Real People, Real Stories Raw. We'll be on live at 3 p.m., which will be 5 p.m. East Coast time. And we have our guest on, Emily. This will be our third try to get Emily into the studio. The last week, unfortunately, Debbie had some significant health challenges that we decided to postpone the show. But she's on full mend, and she's doing well. And we're excited to have Emily on Sunday. And in the meantime, have a beautiful weekend. No matter what you got going on, let's make sure we take some time for self-care. Put down our to-do list. The honey lists don't matter. What matters is that we first take care of ourselves so that we have more to give to others. So take some time for yourself, no matter what you got going on. Take care of yourself so that you can be present for the people in your life that matter to you. And with that, have a beautiful weekend, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Hang in there, Nathan.